I have 6 o'clock. It's February 1st, 2022. I'd like to call the Village Board meeting to order. This meeting of the Sugar Grove Village Board will be held as outlined in Public Act 101-0640, which waives the Open Meetings Act requirement that a physical quorum of elected officials be present to hold a public meeting in the event of a public health disaster declaration and a determination by the village president. Governor Pritzker issued a statewide disaster declaration on January 7th, 2022, and in response, President Jennifer Conan determined that an in-person meeting is not practical or prudent at this time. Now I guess I should call the meeting to order now at 6 o'clock. Can we have Joe? Well, I'll lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance today. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Roll call, Allison.
Trustee White.
Here.
Trustee Walter. Trustee Shomas.
Here.
Trustee Lundy.
Here.
Trustee Heron.
Here.
Trustee Bonnie.
Here.
President Conan.
Here. We do have a quorum. Allison, just as confirmation, is Trustee Walter absent?
Yes, I believe he was. Yeah.
He had emailed us last week and said he was unavailable for tonight's meeting, so we did not expect him to be here.
Okay, I didn't know if I didn't hear it or because I can't see everybody. Okay, thank you. Under public hearings this evening, we have none. Appointments and presentations, we have none. Up next, we have our airport report.
There is, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. There is scheduled airport meeting Monday, February 14th. It's scheduled, but I don't think there'll be one. Amy at the airport has not received a list of who's going to be on the committee to send out the list for the meeting. She's contacted the airport or the mayor's office and doesn't get any satisfaction of when he's going to put out that list. So if there is a meeting on the 14th, I will let you know. But until the mayor's office releases a list of who's on the airport board, there won't be any meeting. And I'm not sure why he has not released that list. He doesn't say. So I have no reason to wonder why. Last meeting I asked when was the last snowstorm, or I talked to Amy last week and she said the 29 years she's been here, the airport's been closed down 3 times. It was closed down once for snow, for 9/11, and recently for the ice. So in 29 years, it's been closed down 3 times. JA Air colors, I said it was red. Their colors are red, cream, and with a black trim. They've recently added some more airports. They're up to 8 now. They acquired business in Sioux City, Iowa, and one in Schaumburg, Illinois. So they're up to 8, and predictions are they want to go much bigger throughout the Midwest, which I understand. I'm not sure, but I think it's a 4-state area: Illinois, Iowa, Michigan, and Nebraska. That's what I've heard, if I'm correct. The other item is that Amy said that the mayor will no longer allow our president to meet with the airport manager because I think there's been some misunderstanding, but I've been told I can meet with him, but I'm not. She says you're on the airport board, so you can meet with him, but our president cannot. I'm going to tell them that's unacceptable. They cannot put I'm going to tell Steve, this is unacceptable. They cannot have their airport in the village without our president or any official allowing to talk to anyone at the airport or any business at the airport, and also have the right to talk to the airport manager without going to the mayor's office. This is not elementary school where you have to have may I or something like that. So if I don't get any section there, then whenever we bring up a airport board meeting, I'll take it up there also. But I think if I talk to Steve, I think this has been a misunderstanding of what the meeting was about. It wasn't about anybody suing anybody. It was simply wanting to know where the airport was going. And I think it's something that should be able to be straightened out without any problems. But we'll see. So I'll keep everybody informed. And if there is a meeting on the 14th, I'll let everybody know ahead of time. Thank you.
Allison, if I have to plug it in, take it out in case he answers. Okay, does anybody have any questions for Joe at this time? No? Okay. And again, I think what Joe, just for point of reference for the rest of the board members, he should be referring just to the fact that there is ongoing litigation at the airport between parties. And I think the miscommunication is that that's all we wanted to talk about. And so Joe's going to smooth that over. But yeah, they have met with me before and the staff has been gracious, and it's just this last attempt to get together was a failed attempt. So that's what that's about. Okay. Moving on then, we have public comment on items scheduled for action. This evening under consent agenda, we have item A, approval of the minutes of the January 18th, 2022 village board meeting. Item B, approval of the vouchers. Item C, a proclamation for National Engineers Week. Item D, a resolution adopting the 2022 zoning map. Item E, a resolution for our refuse contract extension. Item F, a resolution creation of a land trust. Item G, a resolution authorizing a contract for annual preventative maintenance well testing. Also up, we have under general business, A, an ordinance establishing video gaming terminal fees. B, an ordinance amending liquor license classifications. Item C, a resolution amending fees and the number of licenses per liquor class. Do we have any public comments at this time on items scheduled for action? The public here does not have any comments at this time. Anyone online? I have attendees. Let me just open that back up. So it looks like unless I'm wrong, we have one public online. Jeremy, if you have any comments. Okay. Allison? You have a comment?
Just need to use the raise his hand feature.
Raise the hand feature if you have a question. I was just going to let him speak up, seeing he's the only guy on the but that's okay. That's probably better for me to see that. And I don't see him raising any hand. So we will close the public comment portion for items scheduled for action. Moving on to a consent agenda. Would any board members like to remove any items from the consent agenda? Can I get someone to remove item E, the resolution for the refuse contract extension for discussion?
I would request to remove item E for discussion.
I'll
Thank
second.
you. Thank you. Okay. Any other items? Okay, hearing none. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of item E as previously stated?
As stated.
Second.
First out of trustee Shomes and a second out of trustee White. Thank you. Roll call, please, Allison.
Trustee Shomes,
Aye.
Trustee White,
Aye.
Trustee Lundy,
Aye.
Trustee Bonnie,
Aye.
Trustee Heron.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. The only thing I wanted to bring up was, as I went through the contract, some things I just had questions for staff. Item H under cleanup days makes a reference to them providing 230. Oh gosh, let me open it. Hold on. I'm sorry. I want to read it. Cleanup days. 230 cubic foot roll off containers for 1 week for the village for cleanup on a cleanup event. And it says there's no limit to size, quantity of materials to be disposed by village residents. So I was curious, have we ever done that where we've brought in for 1 week, dumpsters basically for residents to dispose of items? I mean, it makes reference to, let's see, quantity of materials to be disposed, no limit on the size or quantity. So I just didn't know if that was something that we just haven't utilized as part of this contract, if it makes sense to do it and have a cleanup day where you're bringing in 2 dumpsters and you might be doing I know sometimes just at my own house, your own weekly garbage can fill up your bins and you don't want to have all this mess outside of your containers. Just a thought. I didn't know if it's been done and if I'm reading it correctly, that's the intent.
I don't recall if it's been done, but I believe you are reading it correctly as far as the intent that is available to us if the village wants to do it.
Okay. For later discussion, I just wanted to clarify that. And then item D, cost and proceeds, I found interesting. It says under that item that proceeds are from the sale of recycled material are to be issued back to the village monthly. Do we ever get proceeds from them?
My understanding is there has never been a net revenue that would trigger that, so we've never received anything, which we were aware of that when we signed this contract, that the markets didn't support it, but it was in other contracts, so we had asked that they include the provision in case the recycling market changed. To our knowledge, it has not gotten better, so I don't believe we've ever received anything.
Okay, that makes sense. And the last item had to do with hazardous waste, disposal of hazardous waste, kind of similar thing. I know that residents can go online and they can schedule their waste pickups, or I think it says that they're on the first, maybe hazardous waste or quarterly, something like that. I looked at it today, but I know that myself, when I scheduled a pickup for a sump pump battery, it was a process, and I just thought, not that it qualifies under hazardous waste, but sometimes if you offer a larger pickup, people are able to dispose of a bunch of things that they don't want in a responsible way, instead of saying, I'm going to take this and just hide it in my garbage can, and then it's not done responsibly. So it brought back that same question: does it make sense to do a hazardous waste pickup day? They do it on a Saturday, according to this, opening no later than 8 a.m. and closing no earlier than 1. And then they clean it up that day. If I'm reading it right.
Yeah, certainly something we can take a look at, but I'm somewhat trying to wing it on the fly here. But I thought, and I don't know if I'm reading it there, was this in lieu of on a curbside pickup? So I think the concern was, if you do this kind of one-shot deal, was actually, in the whole scheme of things, less convenient and less, was kind of less for the residents versus when you have something, you can schedule it. but that's certainly something that we could bring back for discussion if there's some thought that that might be a better alternative.
I don't see it in lieu of, Brent, but we, just out of curiosity, we can discuss it later. I just thought it was pretty detailed contract that I haven't read before because I wasn't part of it, but I'm amazed at how much they're covering with the corn boil. So I think just considering what we're paying and the services that they're providing, it seems like a real win for the village. This doesn't know, but I didn't see it in lieu of, so I'd be very curious if those are things the board, if they would be a benefit to the residents, something additional that we're already paying for, that seems like a benefit, that's all. Anybody have any other questions or comments regarding the refuse extension contract?
Yeah, a couple quick comments from my end, President Conan. The first item that you brought up, I kind of read, and Brent and Tony, you correct me if I'm wrong. I almost read that as a disclaimer that they would provide some support if there was, some sort of, we had an event, a tornado moved through a section of the village, and they would provide something in that case. That was kind of the context that I read that. But whether or not we wanted to consider other cleanup days, I'd absolutely entertain further dialogue of adding those items on a community calendar. I personally have dealt with the issues of trying to dispose of things like old paint cans and batteries, specifically electronics devices. The last couple times I've had to do that, I've had to drive into Aurora to dump some old TVs and some old computers. So I think maybe that's something we might want to talk about doing once a quarter or something like that. Again, get it on our community calendar, so that way that stuff is disposed of properly and remediated properly, especially the electronics. I think if they're gotten in a dedicated way, maybe there would be an opportunity to get some revenue back from that. If there was a single batch, you can pull precious metals out of that stuff theoretically. Whatever the case may be. But so I don't know, maybe there's an opportunity if there was some larger items, a bigger thing instead of something that was spread out. And again, I think what most people are doing is burying that stuff inside their garbage, so then they don't have to deal with the inconvenience, which is causing some bigger challenges longer term. So yeah, I would be supportive of activities like that.
Yeah, just the current agreement does include curbside collection of electronics that our residents can already take advantage of at no additional cost. I know the Kane County, I believe, does occasional electronics pickups, and any large items they charge a fee because, again, I don't think there's any market for that. What you said is true. While there may be metals in there that have some value, the cost of processing and everything, to my knowledge, is anybody outside this contract that's accepting anything large charges like a $25, $30, $35 fee per item. So I believe what we have in this agreement now with the curbside pickup is fantastic, and maybe we need to do a better job of educating the residents of what's in this contract and what's available to them.
I think we need to also educate the contractor, because I put TVs out and they would not take them. They put a sticker on them that says you have to schedule it separately and pay an extra fee.
That's happened to me. It's happened to me.
Absolutely. I apologize if I'm misstating it or misunderstanding. My understanding was you did have to schedule it, but I didn't think there was a fee associated with it. So I don't know if Matt or Allison, if you have any more information on that than I do.
But
that's the first that I've heard that anyone's been told they had to pay. They do have to schedule it separate. You can't just put it out. It does have to be scheduled, but I've not heard any. This is the first that I've heard that they've been told they had to pay.
I must live on the right side of Walnut Woods then, Mike, because I've had to schedule it, but they didn't make me pay.
The situation was a sticker that implied that there would be a fee. So I stuck it in the back of my car and brought it down to Aurora during their next electronics recycling event that they had a couple of Saturdays thereafter.
I'm just going to drop mine
no,
off
I
at
didn't,
Sean's
I
house
didn't
next
pay
time.
it to you. Yeah, that's right. Drop it off at Sean.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I didn't mean for it to turn into a side thing, but it's good. Good discussion on items that, you know, people tend to struggle with. I'm sure we're not alone, but yeah, it is. My experience was that once you schedule your appointment, they're very good about following through with that. It's just taking that step versus you also know that when you're cleaning your garage, whether it be a spring clean out or fall clean out because you're getting ready to park more cars in there or whatever it may be, and you're trying to dispose of a bunch of stuff in a clean out, that's when I'm worried that things can get, you know, like Mike said, buried in your garbage can because people are trying to avoid the time it takes to schedule and then set that aside. And so that's all. If there were days, if it makes sense, seems like for something we're already paying for, if it's an added benefit to the community that seems like we're doing these, then it's something to look into. That's all. Okay. Anyone else have any discussion on this? Okay. Can I get a motion to approve item E, the resolution for the refuse contract extension?
So moved.
Trustee Heron, can I get a second?
Second.
And I have a second out of Trustee White. Roll call, please. Allison?
Trustee Heron,
Aye.
Trustee White,
Aye.
Trustee Bonnie,
Aye.
Trustee Lindy,
Aye.
Trustee Shomas.
Excellent. Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. Up next, we have, under general business, an ordinance establishing the video gaming terminal fees. Matt?
Sure. At the last board meeting, it was discussed and told to be brought back to implement the terminal fee at the $250. So what you have in front of you is the ordinance establishing that video gaming terminal fee, which will be concurrent with liquor licenses. So this will go into effect for liquor licenses that are going to be fiscal year 22-23. And then this also does put a section in here to be codified, since our current code does not have any discussion regarding video gaming. So this creates the code talking about the terminal fee for video gaming. So it will be need to be codified.
Any discussion? Trustee Shomas?
Yeah, sorry, I'm working with two screens, couldn't get my mouse over quick enough. I know we had mentioned I was had some strong opinions on this at the last meeting. I want to start by thanking Trustee Heron. At the end of that discussion, he brought up some pretty mindful points that I certainly appreciated and welcomed, and were probably enough to sway me. That being said, I know we held off on doing any special cases specifically in there for one of our village businesses. I would like to inquire whether or not there shouldn't be something in there for maybe a tiered or an eliminated fee for nonprofit organizations that want to pull these in. Not only the American Legion, say hypothetically we get a VFW or a Moose Lodge at some point in time in the future that might want to pull something in, and I'm not too sure that in special circumstances it might be considered in that direction for those businesses.
Interesting thought. Does anybody have any discussion on his concept?
I don't like it in the sense that, I mean, it sounds good at the top, but I see that there's potential for people misusing that. Hey, I'm nonprofit, coming up with various things to skirt it. I like, just flat out, anybody who has one, you have to pay this fee. So.
Okay. Anyone else, one way or another on that?
I agree with Heidi. But some of the other places also have membership dues that are paid yearly, things like that as well. So it's not like their money's coming just from the machines themselves. They have other revenue incomes fish fries on Friday nights and things like that. So I think their choice of having the machines is that it's a choice. They don't want to pay it, then they can get rid of the machines.
Okay. I tend to agree with both of you. I think that it's a lucrative business proposition, and that the fee is so minimal that I can't imagine that this is really going to make or break a nonprofit. So I totally respect Trustee Shomas what you're saying. I think it's a great concept, but in practicality, this is a cleaner ordinance and everybody's treated the same.
And I think with this, Jamie, wasn't it you that said that this is what was recommended by the industry when you went to the, what meeting did you go to that you said?
I went to the IML in the fall, sat
Okay.
in on the gambling section of it, and it was something that was proposed by the gambling lobby.
Okay.
It's a way to limit people who are going to start, home rules that were going to start jacking it up even higher. So they saw that as a rate that was acceptable to them. But I understand what he's saying about the not-for-profits and that. And it certainly is something that, you're either a not-for-profit or you either are a not-for-profit or you're not a not-for-profit. So,
yeah,
can certainly be policed easily, but I think, again, it's a minimal amount considering the benefits that come from it.
I appreciate the dialogue, guys.
No, and thank you for addressing it. Is there any other discussion on this item? Okay, hearing none, can I get a motion to approve the ordinance establishing video gaming terminal fees?
So moved.
Second.
I have a first out of Trustee White and a second out of Trustee Bonnie. Roll call, please, Allison.
Trustee White,
Aye.
Trustee Bonnie,
Aye.
Trustee Shomas,
Aye.
Trustee Lindy,
Aye.
Trustee Heron.
Aye.
Excellent. Motion passes. Thank you. Up next, we have an ordinance amending the liquor license classifications. And that is Allison or Brent?
That is me. So the ordinance before you establishes a new Class R liquor license, which was discussed at the January 18th meeting. This would allow video gaming for gas stations and convenience stores. The primary purpose of the liquor license is really to allow video gaming. So as was discussed at last meeting, there are a lot of provisions to limit the amount of alcohol that can be consumed. I did reach out to the representative of the gas station and sent them what was discussed and what is proposed here. And the representative replied back that they were fine with what was proposed.
Thank you. Any discussion on this item? Seems like we had a lot of discussion last meeting. So unless there's anything new that came up, I think it looks pretty good. It does exactly what we all wanted based on last meeting. So hearing no discussion on this, can I get a motion to approve the ordinance amending the liquor license classifications?
So moved.
Second.
I got a first out of Trustee White and a second out of Trustee Heron. Thank you. Roll call, please, Allison.
Trustee White,
Aye.
Trustee Heron,
Aye.
Trustee Lindy,
Aye.
Trustee Shomas,
Aye.
Trustee Bonnie.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Okay, up next we have a resolution amending fees and the number of liquor licenses per liquor class. And that is Allison.
Yes. So this does two things. It adds the Class R license and includes the fee for $3,750, which is an additional $2,500 above the $1,250 for the packaged liquor license. It does not provide a license for that, as we have not had anyone request one. So it just creates it and establishes the fee. It also reduces the packaged liquor license from the 7 that were approved for this fiscal year to 6. The BP at Cross and 47 was sold in the fall, and they have not gotten a new liquor license. The police did reach out to them, and they said that they would be interested after their remodeling. So we anticipate them coming back, but at this time, they do not have a liquor license. They're not selling liquor. So that license has been removed. This will come back again at the end of, or just before May 1st, when you approve all of the new applications that have gone through. And if there were any new applications, then the number would be increased as well. So you will see this again before the end of the fiscal year, when all of the 2022, 2023 liquor licenses are approved.
I am curious, has there been any information found by staff on whether liquor licenses are more expensive, if we talked about this last meeting, when you have gaming? So in conjunction with gaming, not a pour license, but just specifically if you happen to have the gaming. I know that was a question that was brought up last meeting.
I have not completed the research into that. Matt probably might have more.
Yeah, I mean, I can kind of speak to that. From what I've heard in the surrounding, no one has a specific fee for it. They do have specific liquor license if you're just a video gaming cafe. Some communities have, because they're home rule, have specific, just an application fee every year or a permit fee. But nothing that I've found currently has a separate fee that says if you have video gaming, you just have this extra fee.
Okay. Is there any discussion on this item? Yep.
Has anybody approached the BP to let them know that we've got this new class of license? So before they actually do their remodel, they would be able to take that into consideration?
I have not, but I can reach out to them following tonight and let them know.
I'd hate to see them remodel and then they find out we've got a new license and then they want to remodel again.
Good point.
Suggestion, Trustee White.
I question we've got 4 licenses that I see kind of as the same thing, but with different fees. Class A tavern, Class E restaurant, Class F beer and wine restaurant, and Class L restaurant and tavern. And I just question why we have different fees for each of those. It would seem to me that I think the beer and wine restaurant is $19.50, and I would just think that each of those should just be the same fee, $19.50.
Okay.
As we discussed last week, from staff's perspective, it's difficult to create a timeline and history of the fees and categories. It seems something was established, 50 years ago and just, changes made along the way. And as you'll recall, when we did the survey of the other communities, our fee schedule and how it looks is very typical. That said, your point's well taken, and I don't think it's a big issue either way. If you want to, approve it as presented, or if you want to, amend those 4 so they're all the same fee, I don't think it's a significant either way. I will admit I'm not familiar enough right now with those classes to be able to comment if there's any distinction really between them, or if it's kind of just different titles, but they're effectively, very similar type entities.
Yeah, I don't see how open range is much different than fireside.
Mm-hmm.
From the sense that it's a restaurant with a separate bar, and to me they seem the same.
Would it make sense to consolidate some of these, I guess, for a future discussion? Not now.
I'm okay leaving them separate, but I agree with you, Trustee Shomas, that, there's, a difference without a difference,
Yeah.
Does everybody have the same mindset that they should, I mean, I agree with you, Trustee White. I think that, you know, it's kind of like these strange numbers that have been put in here, but I'm sure there's a long history to it. I guess the only concern, and it's just a concern, is raising Open Range and Sugar Grove Cafe. They're at $14.50 to then a number to be more in line. I don't even think $19.50 is appropriate when our cap with a business is at $18.50 is the restaurant and tavern. You would be bringing those two up, you know, $400 that they're likely not expecting. Maybe that's not a big deal, but without any notice, maybe isn't the right thing to do. So,
Well, if you'd want to make them $18.50 so that they're all in line with Fireside, I'd be fine with that too. I mean, I just was going for the highest one.
yeah.
But Open Range is on there twice, right? They're under restaurant and golf course. So $14.50 and $900.
Well, I was thinking that's probably because of the beer cart, I imagine.
That's right. Yeah.
So flat 1,900 wouldn't be okay for one license, or you pay a license for the beer cart?
Apparently.
You need a license for the beer cart.
Yeah, I think it
Kind of
needs
like-
to be separate.
It's kind of like the tasting permit needs a separate license to do their tastings, but you do need a separate license to run the golf cart.
Okay.
Okay, so let me just understand. Are we of the mindset that you can eliminate item A, tavern? Are we eliminating classifications? Or are we just going to change the fees on these classifications?
I was only proposing to eliminate or change the fees, not to eliminate anything.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
I suggest
Without having gone through our ordinance and seeing if we define any of these specific.
Correct. Yeah, I wasn't suggesting eliminating any of them tonight. I think it's going to require additional investigation and and a later discussion. But maybe as a bridge to that, standardizing the fees across, since they're so consistent, it seems to be that the way that those businesses operate might be an appropriate step in that direction.
Is there a consensus on the fee?
Okay.
Can I get a show of hands if you would
Yes.
like all four of those classifications brought? I mean, do you want it brought to what the max is right now, which is $18.50? That's Fireside pays the largest.
I'd be fine with that.
Okay. Heidi?
Would we need any discussions and allow those businesses an opportunity to discuss or maybe challenge that at a future board meeting, since we're kicking that fee up by $400 or $500?
It's 400.
Back in, yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Trustee White.
But they can always come in and ask us to change it again.
Okay.
Nobody will stop them from that. But I think if we give them, when is this? This is like in April that it's due. I think we get notice from them, pretty good heads up.
Okay.
Yes, the applications will go out next week. It takes a significant amount of time to get all of the paperwork back in, and so we have to give them as much lead time as possible to have these approved by the second meeting, no later than the second meeting in April.
And the only other thing I want to mention, and not that you hold a carrot over someone's head for a long time, but last year we took all liquor licenses to 50% off. So everyone last year had a 50% reduction across the board, across the village. It was village-wide, and that was done. So I get that this is going up, and if the board decides that they want to raise that to $18.50, there's always the board always has the ability to do what they need to do. If you get someone in here, then I would just say make sure it's the same. I think Trustee White brings up a valid point. I think we're trying to treat all our businesses the same. We recognize that there's additions. You might have that golf cart or some different things along in your business that require an additional license. But for the most part, if you're a restaurant and bar, we want you to pay the same fee as another restaurant and bar.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I guess in the sense that if you're Fireside, you feel like you've been overpaying for a long time compared to your counterpart. And so bringing somebody else up to their level in their mind, that might be a fair thing to do, or they might see it the other way. But I think that the fee is appropriate at $18.50. So if I can just, I'm sorry, Trustee Heron, go ahead.
And so a private country club, the golf cart fee is already in there? Or does that need to be a separate too?
They don't run a golf cart, even for outings.
They've got coolers, right?
They have their, the halfway house, if you will, the vein.
And they've got coolers on the golf carts themselves?
Yes.
I think.
Yes,
Okay.
but they're getting it from the actual building. If they want to put beverages in their cart, they're buying them from the building, not a driving cart.
Okay.
I have other questions too.
Okay.
Where will the wedding venue fall on here?
Catering?
I guess it might depend on the event that she's hosting.
And is there a something they have to check on their application to identify themselves as what they are? Or is there something that we have to check on our end to identify what they are?
I mean, they're not really a temporary, and even though they're going to have the tent, that's going to be a permanent tent for a while.
But I could see them hosting tasting events out there.
But it's much more than that when you've got a full bar at a restaurant.
Yeah.
I guess it begs the question. So under catering license, is that for, let's say they had hired, whoever was having a wedding, hired a caterer. Is that person then, that caterer, applying for that liquor license and just using that property, temporary property?
No, I think they're probably going to need a liquor license to serve alcohol at their venue.
I guess it depends on who technically is serving the alcohol. Is it the caterer or is it her business?
Well, I guess that's the question. I mean, we just created a special class of, what was it, Walter, a special event venue. We would have to, I guess, figure out where in here that special events venue would fall.
So the catering includes the sale of alcoholic liquor in connection with the operation of a catering business, if she is a catering business, and it's liquor in original packages only for consumption at a private party when the licensee caters the food for said party. So if she's providing the liquor, then that would be the catering license.
Okay. And the number on here,
Yeah.
Al, is a little messed up for that one and for the tavern. If you can correct those, please.
Now, wait a minute. You want to correct the catering license?
No. The number, the way that is, it's missing the period.
It's 100.
A tavern, it's got an extra zero.
Yeah, that's a really expensive license. Okay. Yeah, but I think considering that, you've got these taverns that are open 365 days a year unless they have holidays versus a business that's more seasonal, it's probably appropriate that she fall under that catering.
I don't disagree. Yeah.
Okay, so is there any other discussion? Hearing none, can I get a motion to approve the resolution amending the fees and the number of liquor licenses per class, changing item A, item E, item F, and item L to all reflect $1,850, and also modifying item K under catering license to read $1,150.
Okay, yes, correct. I'd make that motion.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Trustee White is a first, and Trustee Shomas is a second. Thank you. Roll call, please, Allison.
Trustee White?
Aye.
Trustee Shomas?
Aye.
Trustee Bonnie?
Aye.
Trustee Lundy?
Aye.
Trustee Heron?
Aye.
Excellent. Motion passes. Thank you, everyone.
Good job, guys.
Up next, I'm sorry.
I said good job to them.
Oh, yeah, that was good work on that item. Up next, we have public comment items scheduled for discussion, the American Rescue Plan, and any other items to discuss. Do you have any other public comment? We do have a public comment in the boardroom. Oh, 1 second, let me just get rid of this. Okay, Mr. Wolf.
I'd like to comment on something that was on the agenda a few weeks back, and it'll be on the agenda again. That's burning leaf. As you know, people with respiratory problems do have a health problem from the smoke that the leaves, when burning, it is a problem with some people. Now, if you mulch the leaves, either with your lawnmower or other things, usually that will break them down enough that over the winter they just dissolve into the soil. And the soil, from what I understand, benefits from the mulched leaves. Now you can do it with a lawnmower, or you can go to Home Depot. Roby makes equipment for under $200 that vacuums the leaves up and mulches them, and then puts them in a bag, or you can spread them on your yard. So for less than $200, you can mulch them that way. And there's probably other equipment that does the same thing. So I hope you consider all things. On a personal level, Barb and I have talked about it. And although we do have some respiratory problems, we do at times enjoy the burning leaves. It reminds us of fall and maybe our younger years, but so we're not asking that you eliminate it, but you use your best judgment. Thank you.
Any other public comments? This would be online. Let me just bring this. And I don't know, attendees. I'm sorry, I gotta open that. And it's still just Jeremy. Any other public comment? Jeremy, do you have any public comment? You can raise a hand if you do. Okay. Hearing none, we will close that portion. Up next, we have under discussion, we have the American Rescue Plan Act. Matt? Oh, I'm sorry, Brent.
I could be wrong, but I thought Jeremy's question mark light up right when you were closing it. I apologize if I'm wrong.
Has unanswered question.
It just says none. No question.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. No, that's fine. Thank you.
It turned green, so I thought it meant something.
Any motion, and we're like, something's happening. Okay. Discussion, the American Rescue Plan Act. Matt.
Okay, so we've been discussing this quite a few times as things get updated. Just to kind of give you some overview, we received our first tranche in August, which was about $672,000 and some change. At that time, there still was only an interim rule. There was not a final rule from the Treasury on what the funds can be spent on. So I would say a lot of local governments were kind of just on hold with that. No one was really spending money unless it was true COVID expenses for PPE or payroll that was dedicated to COVID. Since then, on January 6th, the Treasury did release their final ruling. That final ruling kind of made some clarifications and really 5 main changes and clarifications. The final rule won't go into effect until April 1st of 2022. which is actually the end of the first reporting period for everyone with any type of ARPA funds. However, what they have said is if you do use ARPA funds prior to the final rule effective date, they won't do anything towards that municipality as long as it is in line with the final rule. So if you, even though it doesn't technically go into effect, if you're still following the final rule, you're in basically in compliance with ARPA for the funding rules. So there were some main changes. I would say the biggest change that everyone's heard out is the standard allowance for revenue loss that they set at $10 million. The next one was a clarification on capital projects that are government eligible, rehiring of workers to pre-pandemic levels, premium pay to essential workers, and then there's an expanded list of eligible water, sewer, and broadband for flexibility. So for purposes of I guess, efficiency for ARPA funds, we're going to really focus on the new rule of the standard allowance for $10 million of revenue loss. I did sit in on a webinar from them after they released this, and essentially what they had said is they basically pulled from the Bureau of Labor and how much revenue loss was being reported from municipalities during this whole process, and it ranged anywhere from 0 to $11.4 million. And somehow they came to $10 million as the standard allowance that they were going to use. So they used the high end of the average and determined that's what people were going to use. So essentially what that means is anything from $10 million and below, you can take a standard deduction and a standard allowance and use those funds for anything that is government services. And their definition of government services is essentially any service provided to its residents. There is still those main restrictions from the interim rule, which was you can't put it into pension funds, you can't do debt service, you can't directly transfer to reserves. Those are still restrictions. Outside of those, essentially anything is eligible under government services. So what this does is it turns ARPA funding, if you use the standard allowance, if you do not use it, you're still under all those other restrictions. It strictly changes the standard allowance for government services to treat the money like CARES funding. So what that does is that allows all public safety salaries, just like CARES funding, to be treated as government services. So what that does is if the village were to go forward with the standard allowance, in total, the 1.345 million and some change can be used as a standard allowance used for government services within the general fund rather than what we had anticipated and we had been discussing regarding water infrastructure. We're still eligible, those are still eligible as costs, but this is a new kind of standard allowance that really made everything more streamlined. The reporting is easier. They really wanted to take the burden away from the local government and the small governments that don't have the resources to manage this type of funding. They wanted to make it as easy as possible. There's a more streamlined reporting process for this if we do standard allowance. We could still do the water infrastructure if that's what the board decided, but I wanted to bring it back to the board now that there is a final rule to essentially kind of get the board's feel on what they would like to use those funds for, especially going into budgetary times. So there is no requirement that you have to have any type of plan anymore. The only restriction is that you have to have funds obligated by 2024 still, spent by 2026. That's really the only thing that changed. The reporting period is the same. So the first report will be due April 30th of 2022, which covers the period through March 31st of 2022 from the beginning of the period from ARPA, which is March 3rd of 2021. So a little over a year. That's the first reporting period. So this is just for the board to discuss now that the final rule is out, how the board would like to use funds.
And I just want to clarify real quick that we are getting ready to do budget workshops. It is my understanding that unless something comes up through that process, that we're looking for a funding source and there's not money within the budget to do it. Those are the appropriate times where you could use those dollars or we could discuss using those dollars. But also know the funds, it can all go to the general fund, and we don't need to decide on how we're going to use those dollars until the actual audit is completed. So unless we have projects, right, Matt, if I'm understanding that correctly, we don't really, it's not like something that has to be decided today. If we don't identify current projects, we can earmark those dollars for different items all the way up until the audit is completed.
Yes, that is correct. So what the process we're going to get back to is like we started last year in September, the meeting before the audit is presented. Once we get some final numbers, we will come back to the board with how much our surplus will be. That will then determine the board how they want to use the funds, transfer the funds, where they want them to go. So what this would do is it would create additional funding because you're essentially replacing the revenue that you use for public safety services. And it would create that excess surplus, just like CARES funding did. So yes, you're really kind of just determining on how prior to the end of the year you want to address the accounting of those funds, but you'll come back with a dollar amount when the board gets that resolution of how much we have in surplus. I will say during the budget process, obviously some of those funds are put away as transfers right now, but ultimately it would be decided by the board how those will be used and where they would be transferred.
So does anybody have anything top of mind that you're thinking of projects? I know obviously projects that we're always thinking of is the new Village Hall, any retro that needs to be done to this building. Those are capital projects that the funding could be used for. I'm always curious about sidewalk programs and road programs, but we have a lot of things within the village to attend to, and trying to throw extra money at different projects and still be useful in the fact that we don't want to, when we have major capital projects, we don't necessarily want to have a larger bond, so bond payment and pay interest on that. So trying to be responsible on both ends of tackling projects that we need to that maybe haven't been addressed, as well as earmarking dollars toward major projects.
If I can, Matt, our current plan, if I'm correct, is to present the proposed budget at the next board meeting, the general fund anyway. And so we did, where that draft budget is right now, does include these funds being within the general fund. And you do include, I believe, various projects that either have been brought up by the board or staff has looked at, but then also transfers are significant. Just one big thing from prior years, the draft budget includes 100% going to the vehicle replacement fund right up front, rather than budgeting it at 50%, to get to a balanced budget. And then I think we are including the transfer of some funds toward a village hall that obviously, as you just mentioned, would reduce debt service in the long run. So if I may add, we're certainly happy to hear any ideas, but we already, based on prior discussion, kind of have a concept laid out that'll be presented at the next meeting. I think last go around, Matt, as drafted, the general fund surplus in 30,000 range.
Yeah, not to get too much into it, yeah, it's around 24,000, and that does include a pretty significant transfer for Village Hall future uses. But it does, like Brent had mentioned, anything that was discussed at that 6-month budget update, whether it was said to complete currently or push into next year's budget, all of that has been included already. So we've included anything that the board has discussed at that 6-month with projects or things that didn't get done that need to be done. And like Brent said, it's 100% funding already for vehicle replacement, increases to the police pension funds. There's a lot already in the budget that we've addressed that we could, and that will be presented at the next meeting, as well as those funds in the general fund, showing some transfers, unless there's something else that comes up during those workshops.
So I think our main point tonight was try to get, at least at this stage of the game, consensus not to allocate that to the water sewer fund, where we previously thought that was really the only eligible use that we had. And now that that's no longer required, we would use the funding that was already set aside for that project in the water sewer fund and utilize these funds into the general fund.
Yeah, and I will say that when we utilized those funds initially towards water and sewer, that project that they were going to was already funded. So those funds were already there. So it's not that we're taking it away and then we had to find funding for the water project. That project was already funded.
Go ahead, Trustee White.
So we had another project out in Dugan Woods that we were anticipating. Is that something? I mean, I guess what I would like to see is let's hold something back to be able to do that. Try to get some grant money, of course, to do it. And then if we get the grant money, we can reallocate this to some other project. But I hate to see us spend it someplace else if we were going to have a pretty big nut on that other project in Dugan Woods.
Are you referring to the bridge replacement or something else?
I believe it's the bridge replacement, right?
Yeah, the good news on that, I believe, Tony or Matt, is that we did get the bridge inspection report and that the estimated cost is significantly less than previously had been estimated. Is that accurate?
From our conversations, yes. I mean, it's still above $1 million, but it's not the 2.7 million or 3 million that we anticipated.
And Matt, don't we have funds tentatively reserved for that in the infrastructure fund already?
We do.
Well, that's good to hear.
It is. Like I said, we don't have to discuss
We're
this.
long-term planners here, Jamie.
Yeah, I think the best approach is to go through this budget. Really, what they're trying to figure out is the board okay giving us the most flexibility and keeping it in the general fund and not using it for the water main project in Dugan Woods because we have a funding source for that.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, and there's nothing to say that even in September when this gets transferred and we do transfer to capital for Village Hall, that doesn't say that November comes around and there's something that you need it for that you can't do a same resolution and move it from capital over to wherever you need it. This is just kind of to get through the budgeting and make sure that all those are in line to give you true numbers for budget time.
So our roadway plan that we saw EEI do for us, that's already, all those numbers they gave us are already built into this new budget?
Yes. Everything's built in. The 5 year is already built in as well. That was presented back in November. I'm updating that constantly as we get in new information with revenues and expenses. Just had a meeting today to finalize that because we did switch around some of the engineering to make it more true numbers because you start the engineering for your program the year before. So you're funding it a little bit early. So we're constantly updating those numbers with EEI and just as revenues are coming in and projections. So that presentation will also be part of the budget discussion as well when we talk about those funds.
Thank you. And can I just say, Matt and Brent, I'm impressed. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Quick question on the water main project that I know we were earmarking that. Let me make sure I understand that. There was that project, that had a $2 million allotment, maybe 1.2. What was that figure?
So there's two projects. The Dugan water main replacement was somewhere in the 1.2 to 1.3 million dollar phase.
Yeah.
The bridge out there, which is Phase Lane Bridge, that was in the 2.7 to $3 million.
Okay.
So
okay.
The one that we initially did ARPA for was the water main replacement.
Right. And let me understand it though. That's currently fully funded in that account. Is that correct?
So that is right now we've transferred $850,000 this year for that project, and the remaining 500 is next year, and it's already built into the budget.
Okay. All right. That's even better.
Yeah, Mike, I'm shocked. I thought you were going to, I don't know if your eyes lit up when Matt said that he's including 100% police pension fund at EAN, not PUC. So we've always done this.
That detail,
I didn't get that. Yeah, that detail didn't get put out until next meeting at the budget workshop.
Yeah.
You're spoiling all his fun, Brent.
I know. Speaking of fun, I'm going to
Really,
do it
really-
right now as we're talking about budget and that. I don't know, Jen, if you were planning on bringing up later the furniture.
Oh, I do. I have more importantly, I think we need to get to closed session before the person that I have, we lose. So I want to come back to that, and we can talk about that. We can talk about that next, but I really do need to get to closed session before I don't have my participant joining us.
So are you going to go to closed session, then reconvene back to this?
I would like to.
That's
Okay.
easy for everybody, as long as Allison's tells us it's easy enough for her to reopen the meetings.
The meeting will stay open. I'll put up a notice that we're just on hold until closed session comes back. But everyone will just need to make sure that they come off this meeting and go to the next one, so which is on go to meeting, and you all got the link on for that.
Okay, so let me make a motion here.
You know what? I don't know if I can have both meetings open. Hold on.
Well, can everybody dial back into this meeting? Brent Walter can't?
Isn't it a different service?
Can you just close this and reopen it again?
I mean, if you want to start a meeting and send it real quick back to me, I can be the organizer for that one.
I think it's going to let me. Is it? Hold on. This may be bad. Nope. I don't think I can.
You have two devices. If you log in from another computer, Allison.
Yeah. All my computers are in the boardroom. Hold on. Jeremy's calling me. One moment.
Oh, okay. He might be suggesting what I was going to suggest.
And sorry, I'm trying not to lose our attendant. Hang in there.
Is that Jamie?
The music that goes through my head all day long.
All right.
See, that's sound engineering right there.
Okay.
It's open.
I'm glad Jeremy was in the meeting.
Sean is there. So the closed session is now open. Jeremy has solved their problem. This will remain open. But everyone, please, you can either log off and then come back on or whatever you need to do. And then I will come back.
I need a motion. So I just
Yes.
need everybody to sit tight and don't disconnect. Did we lose anybody? Sean Heron. Oh, he's here.
Don't
He's in-
move.
On. Oh.
Hold on. Okay, so I said, all right. So can I get a motion to move to executive session for the Open Meetings Act exemption to discuss land acquisition and land disposition with no action being taken, and then we will reconvene.
Jen, you also need to add personnel.
And okay. and discuss personnel as well, and then reconvene.
As
So
stated.
as stated.
Second.
Okay, first out of Trustee White and a second out of Trustee Heron.
Whatever, just say yes.
Roll call, please. Did I get that wrong?
Yes.
Fine.
Was it a show miss second? I apologize.
Oh, it was Bonnie.
All right, show miss second. Sorry. Roll call, please, Allison.
Trustee White,
Yeah,
Trustee Shomas,
Aye.
Trustee Bonnie,
Aye.
Trustee Lindy,
Aye.
Trustee Heron.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Allison, I don't know what to do here, so.
I'll come help you.
Okay.
Okay, it tells me that it is recording, so maybe when you
Okay.
just pause it, it doesn't come back on. So,
All right, we are back in the open meeting. Allison, can you do roll call, please?
yes. Trustee White,
here.
Trustee Heron,
Present.
Trustee Shomas,
Here.
Trustee Bonnie,
Here.
Trustee Lindy,
Here.
President Conan,
Here.
and Trustee Walter is still not here.
Excellent. Okay, we have a quorum. We're all back. So this shouldn't be too bad now. We have staff reports and trustee and president reports. So let's start off with Matt.
Were we in a discussion on something else before?
No, there was no, we had the American Rescue Plan. We were done with that. Oh, and sorry, we're going to discuss the furniture. Allison, let's go to you before we do those. So I guess I'll lead in. We had Hendrickson give us a quote on furniture. There have been some modifications from the original plan. I think the staff, original plan had a little bit of a smaller conference table. And so this table is a little bit larger, still similar in shape to what we have. New office chairs. There's also in the plan a break room table in the kitchen and chairs around that. This number just was $11,700, but sales tax was in that number. And so I assume that, Matt, the sales tax can be backed out and it'll be about $11,000 for 10 chairs.
Yes, the new quote, we did get the new quote without the sales tax. It's $11,106.91. It includes 10 chairs in the conference room and 4 chairs in the lunchroom.
And the conference room table is the table that has the USB power sources in the table.
Yes, it has 2 charging stations on like kind of near either end. And then we will run the electric to under when we take up the carpet, they'll dig and it'll run up through the floor to the charging stations.
Do we know how much that is? Brad, did you get a number?
I did. I think it was like $2,000, $1,500, something there. It's been a while since I got the quote. You remember what it was, Brian? I sent it over. I can't think of what it was.
I don't off the top of my head. I apologize, but I'm trying to look real quick.
Every other quote I've gotten for office furniture has included the installation in that.
It includes that. We're talking about the particular table that they're considering purchasing that's in this quote needs a power source from the wall, and instead of someone tripping over the cords,
Yes.
They're going to pull up the carpet to redo the carpet anyway. They were going to run the electric into the floor and then have a floor outlet come up the center. So there's 2 ways of looking at this and saying, okay, if we're going to do it, let's put the money into it and modernize the whole office and that conference room. If you don't choose to do that, then you save the cutting of the floor. So whatever that quote is, $1,500, $2,000.
$2,800 to do the electric. To do the electric and the data and all that stuff.
That's how much?
$2,800. That's worst case scenario. That's to do the electric, the data, and all that stuff. Because you have to get into the walls and everything.
Yeah. So I guess I guess the question before you is, yes, we have a number to include that, which is more high tech, current, or you save the 2,800 and you reduce your table cost. I think on the original quote, Allison, I'd have to ask them, but it was roughly $900 or $800, not having that option in the table.
That's correct. The power grommets are $400 a piece, and we'll have two, so $800.
So that's really $3,600 for the cost for running the electric to have the power outlets in the table. So we're looking for you to decide if that is appropriate, if what you're leaning toward, and then to give a, kind of the consensus to them to move forward, and then we put it on our agenda for approval. Next meeting. But just so that they could get it ordered is what they're trying to do. Go ahead, Trustee Bonnie. Oh, sorry, Jamie. Trustee Bonnie, go ahead.
Jamie, go ahead, go first.
Oh, I was going to defer to you.
Someone go.
All right, I'll go. Thank you, Trustee White. Maybe I missed it, but was the police department not getting some chairs too? Were they not involved in this?
It's not in that number. They're trying to finalize their chair. They weren't thrilled with the chair that they received, so they're getting some new options.
Okay. And then we've got some of those outlets and the tables at work. Don't really use them quite often, and a lot of them have failed. I'm not sure it's the same company. I just know that we've had a lot of issues with those pop-up USB/electric ports. It could be electric issues or the table. I'm not really sure. I just know we've had them a lot of times in our conference rooms. We've had issues with them, and then they're really not used a whole often. Most people are bringing stuff that's already charged, and if you really need a charge, we just plug it into the wall for the time being. So I think I'm leaning towards saving the money on it. But I could be swayed based upon if everybody else wants it. I don't think it's a crazy cost to have it, but I'm not sure it's a necessity.
Okay. Trustee White?
Is that going to stay a conference room when it's converted over to the police department?
That, I believe that's the. He's paused.
Oh, I think I better go now.
Currently that is the intent, not to change that space up. So that would either be roll call or as well as a conference room.
Do you see the need for having them?
I think it might limit the way we set up that room. If we do have electric in the center, that could handcuff us, I guess I'll say, with how we utilize that room in the future.
I think those electrical strips, that go down and protect the electric cord from people walking, I think for the time being, those should be fine instead of spending the money on all that stuff. If you want to get a table that has those kind of outlets in it.
Yeah, and I would think that I've been many places where there's an outlet in the middle of the room, and it's just a flat. It's not like a tripping hazard. It's designed to be completely flat, so you could still do whatever you want. I would lean toward either you're getting a plain table or you're spending the $3,600, but I wouldn't do the table and then run the cord knowing that they're replacing the carpeting anyway. I'd make it a permanent fix. So it's really, if the table isn't needed, then don't spend the money on the table. The company doesn't care what we do.
I think for people who are going to be sitting on the non-traffic side, they'll be able to have cords behind them without a problem. If somebody's going to be sitting on the traffic side and trying to put a cord, back to the wall, then it might create a problem for them. So you just have the people that need to have that access on the other side of the room. I don't imagine, if we were to use the conference room, let's say we actually get back to seeing each other in person and using it for closed session or something, I don't envision us all walking in with laptops and needing it. So I would just say, let's go with a plain table and chairs.
Okay.
Okay. What some of the libraries, school libraries, are starting to do when they've got meeting spaces around the perimeter of the library, so they've just put in those little outlets with the USB ports in them along the walls. Because like what you guys are saying, if somebody needs one, it's usually for a phone or a tablet. It's not usually, they're close enough to all the electrical outlets that I think it's, and if like Trustee Bonnie's saying, if there are issues with, because a lot of those inserts into those tables are really cheap. Regardless of the table, the electronics in them are very poorly manufactured. And I think that tends to be the issue. That's why they used to have them at like we went up on a tour of Winnetka. They used to have something like that up there. They got rid of them because it didn't work. They just put in the outlets and put tables that had wheels on them that could slide closer to the wall if needed, but I don't think it's worth the money.
Okay. Trustee Shomas, do you have an opinion?
I don't think I ever saw any quote pass by my email to know exactly what I was looking at here, but just for clarification, we're talking about a conference room table, talking about conference room chairs, we're talking about an appropriate lunchroom table and appropriate lunchroom chairs. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Eliminating the electrical outlets out of that brings the final price to a $7,500 or something like that.
No, it'd be 10. 10.3, Allison, if I'm doing my math right, 10.3 get you a plain table. And then ultimately to a separate vendor, we don't spend the $2,800 to run the electric.
Okay. Office furniture is insanely expensive. It is. It's the nature of the beast. Yeah, I would agree with some of the other sentiments shared by others that I think putting the outlets in there is going to limit what the function of that room could be used for going forward, and they're more trouble than they're worth. Right. The biggest reason why these things break is someone forgets that the table's plugged in and they move it, and it yanks the cord out from the inside electronics and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, I've seen it happen countless times at offices where I've worked. That's what ends up happening there to those things. Big pain in the butt. They're more trouble than they're worth, and people just learned even when they do work to not even use them.
Heidi?
I'm inclined to say, yeah, we probably don't need it.
Okay, Allison, it sounds like plain table as we went around that room. Brad, we don't need the electric done, just the carpet replaced. But is everybody okay with the number at 10.3? And just as a side note, I know that so the history of this, I pulled an old president of the company who is retired, who has said that we'll get phenomenal pricing on all, is also a resident of Sugar Grove. We'll get phenomenal pricing on all of our office needs, including New Village Hall when that day comes. And so I gave him this project and said, hey, we have this need. And Brent, doing his due diligence, went around and was trying to find another company that he could compare it to, and pulled some folks that he knows and who do you use, and basically ended up in the same place. So that's the long and short. He ended up with the same exact person that was giving the quotes to me. So it's a good number. I don't know if any of our stuff, Allison, I forgot to ask you this. I know that the police chairs that we're talking about through the company have a lifetime warranty, but I wasn't sure if any of our chairs or conference room have any kind of, maybe it's 3-year, I don't know, warranties with them.
I would have to read the back a little bit more. I'm not sure off the top of my head.
Okay. So can we authorize her to go ahead and place the order, and then the actual approval will be on the next board meeting agenda? And that's for the 10.3 then?
Yeah, I have a quick question though. Are we getting any buyback credit on the furniture that they're taking away? Or are we holding on to that?
I don't know what's happening with that. It's a good question.
We have not discussed any buyback. I'm only laughing because the furniture is probably as old as I am, which means it's very young. So I don't know what value it.
It
I
does.
don't know that the company. This is a Mike. I don't know that they are going to do any buyback situation. It would be more of a. Does the village want to donate it? Does the village have another use for it? But I don't know that
Declare it
Hendrick's
surplus and put it out front with Chiefs old police cars.
Buy a police car, get a chair for free, or what?
There you go.
If I can ask the question when we're finalizing a contract there, there's a big time secondary market for office furniture because it's so stinking expensive. I equipped a whole office with secondhand stuff that looked brand spanking new. They condition it, they treat it, and they sell it 25% off, right? So they're still making a profit after they do it on all that stuff. But yeah, there's that can happen. Maybe we'll get a credit. Maybe they'll cut us a check after the fact as a rebate or whatever the case may be. But
Okay. Allison, do you mind asking them? And if they don't do it themselves, maybe they have a source for us. So with that being said, that would make it just kind of gravy at that point, any reduction, but looking for the max at 10.3 that she go ahead and get this ordered, because I think the lead time was 6 to 8 weeks. And we need to take possession before the end of the budget year, which is April 30th.
I'm good with it.
Okay. I got a consensus. Okay, Allison, we can move forward with that. Now we'll go to Matt Anastasia for his staff report.
Okay. So just to kind of go over real quick on some of the stuff that was on there. We did get awarded the SRT body cam grant. We were one of 11 in Illinois. Like I said, there are 708 applicants that are on a wait list that are still waiting for additional funds. So I just did a quick webinar as like an introduction, though we'll be sending out contracts to sign for the village in the early February, they said. And then we can kind of go through that process. I will say a majority of this is going to come back to Chief, as it's going to be going over policy with them and kind of fine tuning our policy and then starting to implement actual body worn camera.
So knowing that we got the body cam, does that mean that we've budgeted the store? We've budgeted the other. Is that purchase falling in this year then? In this budget year, it's falling next year.
Yeah, so that's all in next year's budget. It shows the 1 year proposal that we've received for the body cameras, as well as 50% match from the grant. So we will get that next year, and then I've talked with Chief and the actual when we have to hire people and start looking at data and all that, that's the following year. So you will see an increase in expenses that following year once everything gets up and running. But next year will be the initial purchase of the body cameras.
Okay. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. While we were on that.
No, that's okay. So that kind of covers that. There was no other real items from that. We did have a police pension fund meeting. And I know Trustee Shumas wants to kind of give updates as we have those, since they are only quarterly. Was a little bit more of a meeting because of consolidation happening. The pension fund did get notification that they will be submitting and transferring their assets March 1st. They're part of the first tranche of payments to the downstate for police pension funds. So we did get that notice for the transfer date. So we had to do some resolutions appointing authorized people. I was appointed as an authorized signer on the transfer of assets, as well as the president, Kurt Gilkey. Then generally they try to appoint a president and then whoever is a signer on the accounts. As the treasurer, I am the signer on one of their accounts as a custodial. So that's why we have the access. So I was appointed as that. We talked about how much funds to leave in the actual cash accounts, because those are needed to pay benefits, since there's no real mechanism currently to do that. So that was completed. So we will get a notice sometime in February. We actually just received it that we should be getting something second week in February, which basically freezes the assets and allows you to get ready to transfer on March 1st. So it is going forward as far as we're aware. They weren't sure if it was going to get pushed. As far as everything goes, there's some training that we have to complete every year. So I'll be attending that in April. That's in Peoria. And then kind of just some numbers. For year to date, they go on calendar year. Their net return was 7.9% for the calendar year, which is above their rate of return benchmarks. They received a little over $411,000 in investment income, with a total ending market value of $5.8 million. So main thing is equities were huge, 21.9% actual return in 2021, while fixed income was a negative and cash was a zero. So
I would warn everyone, though, as big as those numbers, sorry, I'm sitting away from the mic. I would warn everyone, as big as those numbers look for returns, we're limited on the amount of money that we can put by statute in equity versus fixed. So the entire fund didn't receive that rate of return, just 30% of it or something like that.
45%. Yeah. So we're anticipating the consolidation is going to happen. There's no real more information except that we're going to be doing asset transfers, and they have 30 days to confirm the assets with a listing that they've taken the ownership of them.
Okay. Is there anything else, Matt?
There is a lawsuit that's pending in King County regarding this consolidation. That's been sitting with the judge for about 2 months, waiting for a verdict, and there's nothing happening. So there's no resolution on that resolution. It's still sitting with the judge in King County.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Matt?
Hey, Matt, does the body camera grant, is this specific to a brand of body cameras, or is it going to be something that you guys will be able to research and pick out the ones that work best for Sugar Grove?
It does not specify what we need to do. It does talk about kind of bidding process or purchasing process of getting quotes, and Chief has worked, and we've been working actually for probably over a year and a half on getting a quote on that. And I know the ones he's gotten quotes on, I think it's Axon is what we've gotten right now. During the webinar, they did 2 actual, I would say, viewer discretion advised videos of body camera footage from, and they do tell you to not look if you don't want to, but they were both Axon, so you could tell which one they were. That's what Chief's got, and we have proposals from them. They also do our tasers. So there is no specific company that they're telling us you have to go to.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? I just had a quick note, Matt, I don't have everyone's staff reports in front of me, but direct deposit or direct payment customers, why has that dropped so significantly since beginning of the year, it looked like, from month to month?
No, so that's a year over year.
Oh, okay.
So we've gone up that much. Actually, it's probably, that number is probably not 673, it's probably 973.
Okay.
But yeah, we have not dropped. We've actually
okay.
And that's over a year.
Perfect. Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah.
All right. Anyone else have anything? Perfect. Thank you, Matt.
Mm-hmm.
Walter.
The only new information I have for you tonight is we've had contact with the architect for Sugar Grove Center Lot 17. They're planning to bring in their plans and make application for the building permit next month.
Hey, that's great news.
That's all the new information I have.
Okay, I do have a question for those of you that are maybe not aware, but yesterday was the first comprehensive plan steering committee meeting. And I'm just curious. I was listening for a bit, but I had to go about 4:20. I'm not sure what time the meeting ended, but anything you can share with us, how it went, what their next step is?
Well, the purpose of the meeting was to obviously, for orientation purposes, to get everybody to know who everybody is, not only between the consultant and the steering committee, but also steering committee members. The consultant also used the meeting to get preferences from the steering committee members as to, when we would have meetings, how they prefer to get notifications of things going on, behind the scenes with preparation of the plan, things like that. We also talked about the schedule, and we have there's going to be a community survey that's going to be made available online shortly, and we'll be getting the word out to the community in every manner we can think of to participate in that. And we have one of the first deliverables is going to be in early March, and that's going to be the existing conditions report. I'm currently reviewing that, as well as the CMAP staff is reviewing that, and we have to get our comments to the consultant in the next couple of weeks so they can respond to our comments on that. And yeah, I guess that's where we're at. So
just as a little side note, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot, and if you can't answer, it's no big deal. Yesterday, Danny said she'd get back to him, but they alluded to the fact, or they said, they didn't allude, that their job is really helping support with marketing material and getting the word out. They can do, QR codes and different things so that people can link easily to a survey. But I don't know what the question was directly, but it made it sound like they have not budgeted any money toward marketing. They're there to create the plan, but as far as the execution of the plan, it falls on the village. And so the question was brought up, is there money earmarked for that effort if it's needed? And Danny said, I'll have to get back to you. And because I think you were having technical difficulties with your computer. So I do have that question. Have we earmarked money toward a marketing effort?
No, not specifically, but what we intend to do is, we'll use all of the social media avenues that the village has used to get information out to the community, to get this comprehensive plan information out. The key is letting people know where to find the link. There is a website that's been established for the comprehensive plan. It's hosted by CMAP, and as soon as we get the link, we'll make that available.
Okay. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Walter? No, I assume no update for Prairie Grove Comments to share with the board?
Oh, I have an update.
It's holding out on us.
Well, it's old news for me already. We had I would say a productive meeting with them, with the developer last week. I think I feel much more comfortable saying that we're making progress. And we have another meeting scheduled later this week to review progress on the things that were identified in our meeting on Friday. And I would say we're getting closer to appearing before the village board.
Great. Thank you. Does anybody else have anything for Walter? All right. Thanks, Walter.
You're welcome.
Brent.
We had a meeting, was it just yesterday? Time flies. Jen, Walter, Matt, and I met with the property owner and a potential purchaser or developer across the street. We refer to it as the Wiedner property. They did give us some presentation materials, and through the course of the meeting, there was a couple items that they want to refine. Before they left, they said their intent was to provide us with revised materials sometime soon, and their intent was to request a meeting before the board. So we do think that will happen, and I don't mean to say it won't, but back in October when we previously met with them, they were thinking they were ready to go before the board, but then when they got away from us and kind of evaluated where they were at, they decided they wanted to put more work into their presentation. So that is a possibility, although they're much further yesterday than they were in October. So as of now, we do anticipate in the next week or two receiving that updated proposal, if you will, in that they are going to ask to come before the village board for discussion. The idea would be that they would present their project, get some feedback from the board, and depending upon how that went, they may pursue formal application and go the plan commission route. Everything else, it'll really just depend on where they're at. So it was a good meeting with them yesterday. Then the other one is that actually in between some of our meetings tonight, and I'm only mentioning it because I need feedback following this from Walter and Jen, is that one of the candidates for economic development director that we're looking at is looking to schedule a meeting. And for those, for the recording out there, we're continuing with that process to recruit an economic development director. We have 2 active viable candidates, and then we got this third one that we definitely want to meet with. And from verbal contact, I'm anticipating another one tomorrow. So that is moving forward.
Excellent. Did you say you were looking for feedback? I'm sorry.
After this meeting, I need you and Walter to check your email.
Okay. I'm sorry. Okay. One of the things that I noticed that is obviously out there as well and going through the village website is the initiatives list. And while I love the updates, I think the very first item on the initiatives list, I think, is the space needs analysis. And it says completed, and it has a $50,000 mark next to it. And it almost makes it look like we spent the $50,000 getting a space needs analysis. So then I thought, do we need another column on there that says actual costs, if there was a cost at all? Just for the community when they're looking at it, I don't want them to think that we went and spent $50,000 on that project. But as I went through that, I also can appreciate how much is getting done, and I love that list. So I don't, sometimes I haven't looked for the color card to see what goes with what, but I know it is color coded. I don't know if that's supposed to be by department, if there's any rhyme or reason to it.
Well, no, what it should be is it's the same for all departments. If it's green, it's an update since last month. We present this once a month. If it's tan, that means the item has been completed.
Okay. So we're making some good progress on there.
Yes.
And I just want to, as a note, because one of the items I think had to do with Matt too on the initiatives list is you're doing a great job. And I know we try to tell you, but you're all doing a great job on trying to get grant money and utilizing other funding sources other than the village. And going through that list is it's nice to see that things are getting taken care of one after another. So That's all. I just wanted to point that out and give you my 2 cents about it, of the appearances of looking like we spent $50,000 on that on that one item.
Yeah, we'll take a look at it. Yeah, putting actual versus the estimated, which is on there now. So.
Yeah. Does anybody have any questions for Brent? No? All right. Thanks, Brent. Tony.
I don't have anything extra to add from the staff report.
Okay. Can I ask you about the Idoc comments? So it said Idoc comments were made on the sidewalk, the crosswalk rather, and that you, I think, in EEI responded to their comments on the 28th or so, but I'm curious what their initial comments were and are there hurdles?
No, we reviewed some of the plans and stuff, and one of the items we discussed was the traffic signal control box needs to be relocated. So it was that kind of item, and it's just updating that kind of information at this point. While we're still working with IDOT, we don't have any comment indicating whether or not it's going to get approval.
Okay. Okay.
Which sidewalk are you talking about there? Sorry.
The crosswalk at Municipal.
Okay, just clarifying.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's too bad. I was hoping that it was like they asked you a question and we're ready to go and you guys responded, but not so much. Does anybody have any questions for Tony? Yes, please, Sean.
Oswego and Yorkville already canceled school. So, Tony, what word do you have on the village of Sugar Grove and what sort of snow you're anticipating? And should you make that phone call now, or do you need the phone number?
1 to 15 inches, anywhere in that range is basically how everything has been phased. But they probably look for our area. Could be 3 to 5 inches. Did it go up?
That's not the number I wanted to hear, Tony.
Oh.
What did you want to hear, 12?
15 would be fine.
Wait, what about drifting? Lots of drifting?
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I can tell you that the last snowstorm, I was shocked that they didn't even delay school. Seems like they don't delay in Canelan because the roads, Tony, and I'm sure you guys are aware of this, and you can speak to wherever you live in the village, but Merrill Road in the morning is a high traffic road. There is everyone coming from, Walnut Woods and Black Walnut and Windstone. And if they have kids and they're going to the high school or the middle school, that road is busy. And there was one, it wasn't plowed at the hour, and nor was 47. I mean, it seemed like nothing was plowed, but yet Canelan was off to school. So I'm trying to tell you, Sean, don't hold out any hope because Tony's got the crew working tonight.
Our truck just drove by.
So,
on cue.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
You're out of luck.
All right. That's all I've got.
Hopefully your staff does well tonight. I know that's a long night. We appreciate them switching up their schedules to keep our roads clean and our travelers safe. Let's move into trustee report. So Trustee Heron, while we're on you.
Okay. I virtually attended the Canelan School Board meeting last night, which ended, I believe, at 21 minutes for a 10-minute recess, and then they adjourned at 27 minutes. And they didn't even make it through public comments. But a lot of emotions running high, I think, with residents. And I contacted Laura about just to make sure, and I just wanted to share our role as trustees as it relates to the school board is we are a completely separate group. We don't have any authority over to agree or disagree with what the school board does. They're an entirely different elected body, and that's not our lane. I say this because State Representative Dan Ugasti was in attendance last night and spoke to the school board, but it was definitely a very emotionally charged meeting, and it didn't end on a positive note. I think they decided to reconvene virtually Thursday night at 7:00. So it's I can understand and relate that a lot of people on a lot of different sides are frustrated, but I don't know, Chief, are you guys in attendance now?
We are. Fortunately, we ended up sending a second officer about 30 minutes into the meeting last night just to have a presence there, a stronger presence.
Yeah, I think that's probably a wise idea moving forward too. That's really, that was a big part of what I had, and I think that's as far as I'll go with that, and that's all I've got to report at this point.
Okay, well, thank you, and totally get your comments that we are here representing the Village of Sugar Grove. We are a different taxing body, and that is our responsibility. And the liaisons that we have with the other taxing bodies are support systems. They're a way of sharing information and communicating and assisting when it's someone else's role, or a support system needed if they're, can be called upon if needed, but it is not our role to lead. Our role is to lead the Village of Sugar Grove and the village board, and that's what we're all doing. So
yeah, regardless of overlap, there's overlap in constituents, but it's two separate roles.
Right. And thank you for sharing information of what's going on there back here with us. I was not at that meeting and can only imagine what's happening. So thanks. Trustee Bonnie.
Just a few things. I spoke with Sheriff Ron Hain and brought him up to speed a little bit about the updates at the police department, the hiring process that has started for us. He was extremely happy with that. I know he's been helping out down here. If I'm not mistaken, Chief has been sending some people down once in a while to help out. So he's pretty excited about the process that we're hiring some new people. I got a business owner, a restaurant owner he owns a few restaurants up north, in a couple towns north of here. He reached out to me about the village, and he's super interested in coming out and maybe putting a restaurant out here. So I'm going to work with him just a little bit more, get him some information, and then I'm going to hand him off to you guys and for you guys to do your business with him. And then my last thing I just want to say is, as much as I love these Zoom meetings, it's very hard to do business, I think, as easily as it is when we're in person. So I just want to give you my 2 cents and say I would really like to go back to in-person meetings as soon as possible. I think with the numbers lowering and masking, I think we would be okay. But I would be looking forward to ending these Zoom meetings and getting back to in-person board meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. He brings up a valid point on that. I think when we went remote, this was last meeting, our full remote. We did some partial remote the meeting before because we had some staff that were quarantined. But the idea of going to full remote is because our audio is so bad in the village boardroom that when you have some folks remote and some people in person, that was the challenge. So that's why it went to full remote, so we could hear each other. But the numbers are going down. We also had, board, it seemed like we had a hotbed within our own village and what else was going on in the community. So obviously I'm here in person. I want to know what the comfort level is because we are an all or nothing situation. We're either all back or we're all remote, but the middle ground isn't working right now for us. So Matt, you bring up a valid point, but I would like to soft poll the board as to who is okay and comfortable going back to in-person meetings. Just a show of hands works for me.
Yeah, I'm completely comfortable.
Heidi is. Shomas? I'm sorry, Trustee Shomas?
Yeah, I always, would feel better if the case counts were pushing the 5%. Again, I don't know where they're at right now. So as long as it continues to decrease, I think we'll be, I'll feel certainly comfortable 2 weeks from now when we're due to reconvene again. I'd be interested to hear Brent's comments though with respect to the support staff members who are also on this call besides just the board members though.
Yeah, what I was just going to add is that the village has acquired a number of tests. So one of the things that we talked about as a staff was the request, and I emphasize request, that at least of the people affiliated with the village, both board members and staff, that the village would provide everybody with tests, at-home COVID tests, and just ask all of us to, the Sunday before the meeting, take an at-home test, and the day of the meeting, take an at-home test. And if you're positive, don't come. If you're negative, we come, we mask. It's still the state law. So we do have enough of those that going forward, at least for several meetings, we could provide everybody with a box of 2 tests prior to every meeting. And I think, it's always a balance, but I think that overall, staff generally it would be comfortable meeting in person, everybody wearing their masks, and certainly would appreciate if all of us would take those tests ahead of time, just to be as safe as we can, but understanding, how difficult the communication and everything is in this format.
Trustee White?
My understanding is we've got a new variant coming that's supposed to be more contagious than Omicron was. Within the next 30 days, it should be hitting pretty solidly in the U.S. I would think maybe we want to wait at least a couple more weeks before we do that, see how things start to pan out again.
Well, our next meeting is in 2 weeks. I think that what the concern is too is we're getting ready to go into budget workshops, and those are easier to do in person. Can be a bit of a challenge, maybe not for Matt because he's got access to his computers, but he'll have his laptop. With that being said, I think that's the idea is hopefully to be back in face-to-face for those budget workshops. Also, if we do have Wiedner in the Ridgeline coming in front of the board, it's better to have dialogue when we're all here. So that's another, and I don't know if it'll happen, but I did suggest that they come to our next meeting. We'll see. But again, I think that Allison, correct me if I'm wrong, or Laura, we just need 48 hours. Do we need 48 hours to post whether we're going remote?
Yeah, you would want to just have it on your agenda so you can have all the appropriate instructions and everything for the public.
We don't have to decide today. We can watch the numbers and see what's going on. And then as we get closer to that next meeting, maybe the Thursday before the meeting, we can make that determination. But the next couple of months with budget workshops and going through these funds, it's a lot. It's exhausting. And I don't know. I think it makes for better communication, especially with if we do have Wiedner's project come in front of the board. That's a big deal. So totally hear you. We'll watch it and we'll see what happens. We don't have to decide tonight. I'm just trying to get a rough idea as to where everybody's head's at with it. Okay, thank you. Heidi.
I am trying to meet up with our new library director. Jenna Mickey was appointed the new library director, and find out what all needs they have. I do know that the Now space which is what used to be the cafe, is still under renovation, and it's going to have some really cool stuff in it. Studio spaces and group seating and stuff. So I look forward to next time giving them a bit more in-depth detail report on what's going on at the library.
Well, thank you, Heidi. And Jenna was a promotion from within, so she
Yes,
wasn't.
she was. Yep.
Excellent. Trustee White.
I just kind of wanted to talk a little bit about, the Wiedner piece, and Jen and I talked a little bit today about it. There's going to be a lot of back and forth on the TIF aspects of it, and I think we really ought to decide, what's our number, so that we can kind of give them at least some lead to say, look, if you're within the number, that's great. We'd love to keep talking, but if you're not, we're just spinning wheels and wasting time. I think that would go a long way for at least moving it along at a pace which, if everybody's okay, of course, with the land use. That's the other big question, but I think it's something that we should start thinking about, and perhaps if you want to, I don't know who to talk to about it, but I think Jen had a pretty good idea today of, what some of the other, when we talked, there was, what are some of the other numbers that might affect other properties and things like that. And so getting things in line and having a position on it, I think would help us, going forward with this and not just wasting our time or their time. I think that would be a good idea for us to do. The other thing I wanted to ask was, when we move forward with a proposed village hall, what's the time frame for getting construction plans done? Can anybody tell me that? Brent or Walter
Not definitively. I think I would guess, and anybody can contradict me. Maybe even Heidi might be the best to know. I would think, plus or minus 9 months from the time we determine, what architect we're going to work with or what method. I think one of the, in my mind, I think we would probably have to look at a couple different approaches, whether it's traditional or a design build type approach. But I would say that that would be my rough number. Heidi, Walter, if that's off track or not, I would think 9 months to be able to would be about right.
From start to when you're ready to build.
Sorry.
Because I've been on fast track projects that you can probably turn around a lot quicker than that, but you want to make sure you do it right. So I would say you could probably do it within 6 months if we wanted to, for the architectural plans ready to be for permit. And then you've got the permit process of going back and forth with the, things that need to get changed. But from start, because we have a pretty decent idea. We're not starting from complete scratch. So that's why I don't think it would be a full 9 months for that.
I was just thinking we have a little bit of surplus that we were looking for, and I just wondering if that's a process that maybe we get started on, or is it just too early?
I think it's too early in a sense that you generally want to know where your site's going to be, because otherwise, if you get your construction documents drawn, or if you get fairly well into the design documents, and then you change the site, it gets a lot more time consuming to adjust for site to site. So just the basic preliminary stuff is probably all you want until you get the site picked out.
Thanks, Heidi.
And to go back, Jamie, just to your first comments about Wiedner's property, I think that, I believe this board to be a similar thought process with developers, and that we're not looking to waste their time and money. And that's why, the encouragement to get them here for the discussion, because there's two parts to this. There's the land use, and there's the TIF ask. And so the document that we're looking for from Ridgeline, their numbers, a lot of the columns didn't add up and that kind of thing. So I think they're just trying to modify and make sure it all makes sense. It's lengthy. It's a lot to look through, and obviously want you guys to have as much time as possible before they present. It's not going to do you any good to have them come in here and present, and you've had what, 2 days to look at the document, and that's not enough time. So we've encouraged them to get it to us so that it can be shared with all of you, so you can formulate your own questions as we go through this process. But we really are trying to get them to come here and have a nice open discussion and hear any concerns or, favorable comments or whatever it may be, but directly from you all. So thank you, Jamie. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. While we're talking about TIFs, would it be beneficial to have like I've been around a little while, and I've done some stuff with TIFs, creating TIFs, linking TIFs, learning about TIFs. I had something in grad school, but I still am not always the most there. I still always have questions about what we're able to do. Would it be beneficial for, I'm not sure how many, what the comfort level is with what we're allowed to add, what we can ask, what we negotiate on. Would it be beneficial for us to have like while we're doing workshops, have some sort of a TIF workshop to maybe bring everybody into a little bit more comfortable space before we start negotiating, bring everybody on our board? Or is everybody else completely comfortable with it? I just didn't know what we've got some different people on the board. I think since we've done a lot with TIFs, is that something that would be beneficial, or am I just really tired?
No, we're all tired, but I'll tell you this. We're all exhausted. The way I see it is you all should be able to ask what you want without it being a negotiation, because what you're going to see in this document is already got an ask in there, a need in there based on internal rate of return and what numbers they're trying to meet and those kinds of things. So they have an ask. And so when you get the document, it's really go through and look at it from your perspective as to what is something that you would think is reasonable. Do you have a question with that line item? Why do you need this and not this, or whatever it may be? Look at that document and ask any questions you want, because another board member might be thinking the same thing, or they didn't think it exactly the same way, but kind of, and now you've come to understand where they're coming from. I think that we will, if the negotiation part isn't going to happen in the boardroom, I think that we're going to get a sense of where everybody's heads at, and kind of like the last one, and it's going to be like, okay, well, this is what they're asking for. This is what we think is reasonable. What do you think? Are you all comfortable with that? This is, that's going to how it's going to go. But when you get this first pass document, you're going to look at it for face value, is what I would suggest, and see as you're looking at it what questions arise, and ask those questions when they're here, because it is two parts. There's no part in talking about TIF if you're not okay with their land use. So it's really getting consensus on land use, if that's, and I don't know to share that with them. So that's why the discussion is so important. And then if you do get consensus on land use, then really go through that TIF document. And part of what we're trying to figure out, and Matt's going to work on, and is really what is out in the marketplace. We talk about what they're going to tell us, how much a piece of property is valued at based on lease agreements at so many dollars per square foot. Well, we want to know what the comps are as far as subsidies and incentives. Are there incentives for different types? What is that number? Because we don't want to just go give away whatever if that's really not commonplace in the market. So we have to do a little bit of due diligence. I thought they would present some of that. I didn't see it in the first pass, so we'll have to do a little bit of digging. But I know that's what's important to me. I don't want to say, it's hard to pick an arbitrary number and say this is what you need. If in Sugar Grove you need it, but 5 miles down the road, the need isn't there at all on a comparable piece of land. So we have to wrap our brains around that part as well. So there's no, I would say, really ask what you want. It's not to hold you back. It's the negotiation part, I think, will happen behind the scenes, if you will, as most dealings do, presented in public if they come to terms, to see if the board is of the same mind. But I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, and obviously it's been a long meeting tonight. I don't want to go on and on and on, but I would say, Sean, maybe sometime in the next, still this week or early next week, maybe you, Matt, and I can just have a conversation and get a little bit more into what some of your questions or thoughts are, and depending upon how that goes, we can figure out, if there's stuff that we think would be, valuable to the entire board.
Yeah, that's a good point too. And anybody can reach out to staff at any time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I didn't mean to limit to Sean.
Yeah, no. But so we're trying to, help develop the village and do it responsibly and the best way possible. And so there's no roadmap to the perfect plan and how you get there. And so we'll work through this. But we want the landowner to know that we're interested, and we want the developer to know that we're interested in what they have to present to us, and we'll see if there can be a meeting of the minds. So I don't have much for you all. It's obviously continued meetings on different fronts. That's what I've been up to. So nothing new to report or lengthen this meeting. So I thank you all for your participation. It was a long meeting, but it was a good meeting, and we convene back in 2 weeks. But if there's nothing else, I will ask for a motion to adjourn. Mr. Heron had his hand up.
So moved.
I'll second.
Trustee Shomas is a second. Roll call, Allison.
Trustee Heron?
Aye.
Trustee Shomas?
Aye.
Trustee Lundy?
Aye.
Trustee Bonnie?
Aye.
Trustee White?
No.
All right. Good night, everyone. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Good night.